here at Dave and Wendy's house. What's going on this week? We're making kimchi. Kimchi is listed as one of the top 5 healthiest foods in the world. That's incredible. I actually had a friend whose son went over to Korea for a foreign exchange program. All of his acne disappeared. Then he came back to the United States and acne. And he said, "Mom, please make me kimchi." And do you know why it helped him? Because acne is actually a symptom of gut problems. Today, you're gonna learn how to make your own kimchi because it's so easy. Kimchi has 7 ingredients. That's right, 7, the number of perfection, which kimchi is. It's an awesome food. So we're gonna include, number 1, green cabbage, and then some garlic. Radishes, traditionally it's a daikon radish, and I have lots of radishes from the garden, so that's why we're making kimchi today, to use those up. Green onions, ginger, Korean red pepper, and this is not a hot pepper, but it has an awesome Asian type of a flavor. You can find that at Asian grocery stores. And then a good quality salt. Any salt will do as long as it has color in it and has lots of minerals. One of the ingredients in kimchi is part of what's called cut and come plants. That would be the green onions. And I get a big old bag from like Sam's Club or Costco, places like that, because I'm gonna grow them again. Let me show you how easy it is to do that. You just take your green onion that you get from any grocery store and you cut it, leaving about 1/4 of an inch from the root, about 1/4 of an inch from the root. So I'm gonna just cut one. Now I can eat this whole thing and enjoy it for whatever I want in the kitchen, but this little tiny bit is gonna regrow a whole new onion. The way I do that is I take a sprouting tray, and I'll put the link in the description below for where I get these, because I use them for soil-grown sprouts, but they're also great to start things in the nursery for your garden. So you just take it, I've already pre-moistened my soil, which is I just grabbed some compost from my compost pile area, but you just put it in there and bury it, and then you can put this dome on here, and that will maintain a really good humidity level for the green onion. In a couple days, you'll see it start growing up really nicely, and then you can transfer it to the garden. So let's head outside and I'll show you what they look like now. So from this to this in just about 6 weeks. It's amazing. They grow so fast because the plant has already matured quite a bit when you buy it from the store. So when you go ahead and put it in the garden, it's already that much farther ahead in its plant cycle. So it grows really, really fast. I've had some that I've put out in the garden that went to seed, which means it put up like a flower stalk, and like scapes do with garlic, and oh, they were so delicious. I would just eat the whole thing. Something you could never buy in the store. But yet it's so simple to do from something you've already bought. Why not turn it into this? Step number 1 in making kimchi is to prepare the cabbage. So you'll want to buy your cabbage or grow it if you can. But cabbage is actually listed as one of the cleanest foods. It's on the top clean list. So if you can't find organic cabbage, don't stress over it. You'll get more benefits by fermenting it into kimchi than passing on it because it's not organic. So get what you can. And then I don't bother washing it because it's really, really tightly knit together. And we're going to remove the outer leaves anyway. So I just take them, remove these outer leaves, but we do want to save them because we're going to use them later on. So pick them off and set them aside. Before you cut up your cabbage, you need to consider what size vessel are you going to ferment your cabbage in. So this is a quart jar, and whenever you put your sauerkraut into your jar, you can't fill it more than 3/4 of the way full. So if you look at a quart-sized jar and you go up about 3/4 of the way, with that, by the time I put some outer leaves as a cover and I put this cup in there, we should be okay. It should be able to be right at about at that level. But what if I'm using a bigger jar? Like today, I have a lot of ingredients to put in this. I bet I'm gonna be in a 1-gallon jar. So if I have a 1-gallon jar, which actually I have lots of them right here. So let me just show you for sake of being visual. if we're gonna fill this up 3/4 of the way, which is about what this is at, and then we try to put this cup in there, uh-oh, we have a space. And it's not gonna be putting pressure on the cabbage to be submerged underneath the surface of the liquid, which is what we want. And that's actually better than just throwing a couple weights in there, is to have it being pushing it down under pressure. So we can fix that by taking advantage of the cabbage and actually making some spacers out of the core of the cabbage. Let me show you what I mean. So you're just gonna take the bottom of your cabbage and go in, maybe it's say 2 inches, and cut it right off. Then from there, you can make this a little more square. And now this will actually add to it. So when you have that in your jar, you can push more pressure down. And if you had an even bigger jar, you could make a couple of these and stack them up. So always save the cabbage core because it can be very useful later. Now we can just cut this into chunks, the size that will fit whatever device you're using to shred it. I love a mandolin shredder, and I'll show you mine. This is a jumbo mandolin, specifically designed for sauerkraut. Look how wide that is, it's awesome. So you can actually get the whole width of the head right onto the shredder. So when I use this, I of course use one of these metal gloves so that you don't cut yourself, because it's very easy to do with a mandolin. And then you can take it from there, you can do it the width way or this way, and then you can just start slicing it like that. See how beautiful it comes out? Really, really nice. But we're not gonna do it on a cutting board. I like to use a bus tub. You can get these at restaurant supply stores. You can order them online. So we have it all shredded, but we still have all of this stuff. We have a choice. I can either sit here and kind of get the knife up against my fingers, and I can go and chop the rest of it really nice and fine, or I can just save this and make cabbage soup. The next step is to salt your cabbage. This is a formula or a rule of thumb that is 1 teaspoon of salt for every pound of cabbage, which means you're gonna have to weigh your cabbage next. So we went and got a bathroom scale, and I weighed myself with the cabbage and then without the cabbage and deducted the difference, but make sure you figure out what your container weighs. When Dave and I were making sauerkraut all the time, we got a Sharpie and actually wrote the weights on all of our containers so we wouldn't have to worry about forgetting that later on. But thankfully for me today, I had a spare one of these just the same size so we could do the math. So now we know that we have 8 pounds of cabbage, which means we need 8 teaspoons of salt, and we have 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon. So I need 2 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons of salt. So I'm just going to take my 2 tablespoons. It's not an exact measurement, so don't worry about that, but usually coarse salt, you go with more of a heaping measurement anyway, and fine salt, more of a scant measurement. And then I'll do the 2 teaspoons. So now, oopsie! Now that we have that done, we actually could really use a man, because we have to sit and massage this, and it can get, I mean, I can do it, but if I had a man's hands, this project would go much, much, much faster. Oh, Dave, are you here? You want to come and help me?
Yeah.
Yay! Oh. Maybe we can both work on it together.
That's what I'm
And we just get in here and just work that salt into the cabbage.
Bust it up.
And we're gonna keep going until this starts to release liquid, because you never add water to sauerkraut. The liquid comes out of the cabbage. The salt draws the liquid out, but us massaging this will kind of bust open more of those cell walls within the cabbage and get it out. So I guess we'll see you in a little bit after we get this done. If you don't have the muscle strength to sit and squeeze your cabbage, you can just put it in like a crock pot or some kind of a container that'll hold it real nicely, where you can put a plate on top and then put a gallon jug of water on top of the plate, put a towel over all of it, and let it sit overnight. And the weight of that water sitting on the plate will push down and the salt will go to work and that liquid will come out of the cabbage overnight. So that's an easy way to do it. We choose to massage it because it takes us 5 minutes and then I don't have to come back to the task. I can finish it all at once. So that's why I like to do it that way, but you have the option. Our cabbage has been salted. We've massaged it. The liquid came out. Now is when we add the other ingredients. You don't add the other ingredients until this point. You want to get that liquid fully extracted from the cabbage. Now we could add whatever we wanted. If I wanted to make sauerkraut, I could add some shredded apples and caraway seed right now, which is a recipe we loved. But today we're adding the ingredients for kimchi. So technically, this isn't, you know, exactly the way kimchi was made. They would take Napa cabbage and cut it up and cover all the ingredients in salt water. But we like the texture of sauerkraut better, and you get a lot more surface exposure, so the bacteria have a lot more places to go to work. So we really like just using the same ingredients for kimchi, but make it like sauerkraut. So all we're gonna do now is just take the rest, the other 5 ingredients. We've already used our cabbage and salt. Now we'll use the other 5 ingredients. We'll just chop them up, whatever texture we want, throw them all in and mix it up, and we'll be ready to jar it. See, this is traditional kimchi that we got at an Asian store. It's just Napa cabbage chopped up. And while this tastes delicious, it's not necessarily raw fermented. I've went to different Asian stores and asked them, well, how do you make this? And they tell me a 6-hour process and then it's done and ready to sell and eat. Well, kimchi takes weeks to ferment. It's not done in 6 hours. So they're using vinegar or other things to try to get the same flavor, but it's not the same health benefit. So it's really good if you can make it yourself. Kimchi is all chopped and mixed, and now it's time to load the jar. So you can use any kind of vessel that you have for fermenting. I like to use big jars because you can only fill it 3/4 of the way full. So I might as well have a bigger one because I want lots of kimchi because this is so good. And as long as I'm making it, I might as well make a big batch, right? So all I really need to do is just start dropping it into the jar. It's gonna tell you too, when you're making this, like I didn't put the amount of garlic and ginger and stuff on the screen because it really doesn't matter. I've always said your recipe calls for what you have. And in this case, that's very true because it doesn't make a big difference really. You can know, well, do I like a lot of ginger? Do I like a little bit of ginger? And you can kind of put it in here based on what you like or what you have. It filled up even more than 1 gallon, so I got 1.5 gallons and another extra one that I could give away as a gift. But I still have liquid in my bus tub, and I definitely want that liquid, but I don't want all the little pieces of extra goodies that are in there, so we're just gonna strain that out. Because we're gonna make use of this liquid for sure. So that's strained. And I took extra time to actually clean the jars and to clean them inside. We really don't want any, like this section of the jar could have oxygen in it, and we just don't want anything sitting up in there. We don't want to give opportunity for anything like yeast to settle in there. So clean this all off really good. And then we're going to make a cover that will completely cover all of our ingredients and keep them submerged underneath the surface of the liquid. And that keeps them in an environment without oxygen. So when we take our outer leaves, they're kind of, you know, bent. So you can either bust them in half or kind of rip out the spine if you want. Anything that makes it so it's a little bit more pliable. See how much more pliable that is? And we can stick it in there and try to get that completely covered. So I'll go ahead and take a second one. I'm just going to rip the spine out. Just make a nice cover. Now, if you run into a situation where the cabbage that you want to use doesn't have any outer leaves, because sometimes they peel them. If you buy it in the store, sometimes they'll peel them ahead of time and you won't have anything to use. we have come up with a clever little trick that works for us. We take these flexible cutting boards. So you can buy these usually 3 in a pack. They're normally rectangular that you would use for cutting, but we go ahead and cut them into the, the diameter or the circumference of the jar that we're using, and then make a hole where the middle is and cut down. That will allow you to turn this so that you can actually get it inside your jar. And once it's inside your jar, then it'll just open up again. So ours are really big because we've made sauerkraut and kimchi in 5-gallon buckets. So that's why we have really large ones. But I prefer to use the cabbage leaves if you have them, because there's more beneficial bacteria on these cabbage leaves, and it's just a little bit more natural solution, so I like to do that. Once you've covered it, then we're gonna need our bridge that we made out of our cabbage core, and then our cup. And now this looks like it's way too tight, right? But we want to push this down and to have it under pressure. We really want it to be under pressure. So this is a little, looks like a little too tall, so I could use maybe a cup from the smaller kit. Use that one, and look at that, I'm right there. This one's a little taller, maybe that'd be better so I can put more pressure. Yeah, I like that better because that gives me more pressure. So when you push down, what you're looking for now is how much liquid do you have that's kind of floating up on top of your cabbage leaves. This one doesn't completely cover, so I could add more or just fix it. But when you push this down, you want to have about 1/4 of an inch of liquid above the surface of the cabbage. So this one's a little low. So what we could do is just add some of our strained stuff. So we have a little bit more in there. And then put our cover on. And see, I want this to be under pressure because I want this to be pushing that down and holding it firmly in place. I think I got it on. There, now we have an airtight seal. So the water is off balance in the airlock. That's what we're looking for. That tells us we have an airtight seal. And by the way, the Perfect Pickler Kit is the only kit that gives you this proof of an airtight seal. This is your evidence that your kit really did work. And that's important because sometimes you don't get an airtight seal. Maybe the gasket got crimped, or the lid just didn't get seated very well on the jar. Maybe a spice or a seed got stuck up in there. So you want this evidence. See how it's already starting to change? That's great. And pressure will build up. It's going to push the water over. The water might kind of move around during fermentation. But this is like a vacuum cleaner. Everything is coming out, but nothing can come down the other direction. In other words, when you turn on your vacuum cleaner, it's not going to spray dirt out into the living room. It's a one-way direction. That's what this is. The building up gas can escape, but airborne yeast cannot get down and through this. It's completely sealed. You'll have the most consistent results of any kit by using this. So that's that one. Now let's look at this one. So we do it again so you can see. We're going to tear our covers. Get them to fit in there real good. Okay, so I'm going to try a smaller spacer, and then we'll go with a small cup. See how, I think I want a taller cup. Let's try this cup. That's nice, and look at that. That's about 1/4 of an inch already, so we don't have to add anything. Now what if I was short and I didn't have 1/4 of an inch to cover that? Just go ahead and add some salt water. The same brine that we would use in fermentation, which is 1 tablespoon of salt for 2 cups of water. So this one's ready to add the cover. And I just want to show you a trick on this one. So you have your airlock. You just pour the water in the top. This can be any water at all because it will never go down into your jar. In fact, you don't even have to stress over how you sterilize or clean this because anything that's inside this airlock cannot go down to the jar. It's a one-way valve only going out. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. So put the water in there and then you can kind of like tilt it to make sure that it settles in and it's at the max line. It says max right on the airlock. This is called an airlock. Then you take the lid, and if you twist it in with the lid on the tabletop, once it touches the tabletop, it's inserted to the exact depth that you want it to be. So that's a nice trick. Then you can take it and bring it up here. Make sure that you have your gasket in there because it's not airtight without a gasket. And then you put it on there and securely get it in place. Once we got that in place, oh, looky there. Look at that beautiful airtight seal right off the bat. Can you see that? Perfect. Beautiful. Now, if you're not sure if you have an airtight seal, you can even test it. Put your finger down like that and then let go. And it should settle right back down into an airtight seal. Now, do you have to have this kit? If you can't afford it, it's not the right time for you, no. You could burp it. But the thing is, you're going to have to pay attention to burp it every day. So it's going to require more babysitting. And every time you burp it, you do let some oxygen into the jar. So if you can get a perfect pickler kit, it is the best. I had enough leftover kimchi that I could make a small gift to be able to give to a friend. So with this one, I've got my cabbage leaves in there, but it's missing a little bit of liquid. So I have some pre-made saltwater brine. So I'll just add a little bit more to that. Then we'll put our cup on there and we'll attach our perfect pickler assembly. Remember, this is a system, it's not just a lid. Sometimes I like to go backwards until it clicks and then go forward like that. And let's see. See, now that's not right off the bat showing an airtight seal. So let's do it again. Actually, you can come and wipe everything off. Make sure nothing's in the way. We'll go down again. There, let's try that. Could be too that there's a smaller amount in here. It might take longer for it to have that airtight seal. Sometimes I'll make them and then I'll check them again, either that night or the next morning, make sure it has an airtight seal. But that looks pretty good. And now you have a gift. You could give it away, and they also get a perfect pickler kit. Make sure you compost your scraps.